and Dommies and all of those, like the Sentry drone mechanics, like even the prophecies like Tess used to use. So that is following that, they kind of came up with the idea that it's going to be capped at 50. I don't know if it's 50 drones or 50 players drones.
I think the intention is 50 drones.
Okay, so
And
50
and
drones
let's
per single player.
and let's be clear, everyone was clamoring for this sort of nerf except for Slow Cat and Dominic's pilots.
Which is interesting because if you think about who's on which side of this, obviously slow cats come from PL Fleet Doctrine, which bleeds into N3 and all the that group, and obviously even Test and so forth have slow cat uh, doctrines. But conversely, goons were very Dominix dependent. I don't know if they were quite to the level of drone assist usage. I never actually seen a goon Dominix fleet battle, so I don't know if they were actually using the drone assist mechanic. I assume they will, because why wouldn't you if it was there? But with that said, it's kind of going to affect both sides. Some people are calling it a victory on for goons, for nerfing the slow cats and being giving some air to their, what are they calling it, the Naglfar dread fleet thingy that they're talking about. Anyways, blog posts up, or excuse me, a forum post is up for discussion. It's not in yet. They're not sure when it's going to be in. The key goal for the 50 cap is to allow some people, like small gangs, to still use the drone assist for effective usage while still not nerfing the fact that, or while still taking it out from large scale battles that we see it happen so often, and people can kind of just sit back and relax. Next up, I think we have another dev blog. In this case, it was one I slipped in the last minute here. I don't know if the guys had a chance to look at it, but it's the production and destruction in Eve. It's a very cool infographic. They do this every year, but it shows you like where all the ships get blown up in Eve based on system name, and the larger the circle, the larger the number of ships that get blown up there, and the colors denote security status with red being null sec, and of course green and blue being high sec, and so forth. But it's pretty cool to see. You can see how a lot of the production happens in high sec, and a ton of destruction happens in the low sec regions. But there's also quite a bit of construction also happening in the low sec regions. So it just kind of shows you the distribution that you kind of get from the sandbox that is Eve.
Next up, we have a whole lot of stories that we'll burn through very quickly about kind of the aftermath of the BTAC-R fight. First on the chopping block is Pandemic Legion has decided to withdraw from the Halloween War and withdraw from the South. There is a link that I have on one of their threads, basically showing a post from Grath, one of their Sky Marshals, confirming the withdrawal, and that's it. It kind of looks like, in conjunction with a couple other things, the Halloween War, at least this phase of it, is winding down to a little bit of a close.
And yeah, that came from reasoning of being, Graph. I think one Kugu post I read or something of that effect was basically saying, we can't. Our people need to regroup after the Battle of BTAC. We lost a lot. We as an alliance we're fairly rich, but you can't just get back up and just continue motoring on after you just lost. I don't remember the exact number. I know it was 11 trillion total, but there's actually an infographic that I'll actually link in the show notes here in
I
a moment.
thought it was 8 or 9
Yeah,
for the
trillion
entry
is
side.
that's not something you just shake
Yeah.
off in the world of Eve. You're gonna that's gonna have some serious effects, and one of those effects were why so serious being asked to drop Sov and give it back to PL, right?
Yeah, and let's actually run through these stories real quick, and we'll talk about them for a little bit. So, Why So Serious and their holding corp have been asked or told by Pandemic Legion to drop their SOV in whichever region it is, and then Insidious Empire is also shutting down
Outer
its
Outer
doors.
Passage.
Thank you, Kuda. Yeah, Outer Pass, and then Insidious Empire is shutting down and transferring its SOV to Brothers of Tangra, the PL Renter Corp. And then finally, the last one, kind of unrelated, but again, kind of wrapping up the Winter War, is NC Dot is withdrawing itself and its assets from the South. So it looks like the Halloween War after, and you don't see, maybe you do see big clashes. And Sov wars like this. But at the very least, it looks like the Battle of Bitakar certainly turned the tide for the Russians and the CFC in that particular conflict.
I'm curious here now, and not to get too like big talkish on this, but why why would you after you just got whooped, why would you walk away from Sov? Isn't that where the money is? Like if you're already there, why wouldn't you just stay and make some money?
Well, they're withdrawing from the contested regions. They still have Sov. They're just withdrawing from their like quote unquote contested region, so that they're fighting for. NC is moving back to, I assume, north that they already inhabit. I'm not sure exactly where that is. And PL is pulling back to kind of hold down their drone lands that they've had for a while, and get I assume start getting Ren or Isk out of that to recoup losses and so forth.
Okay. I was just kind of curious. It's interesting to see that happen, and I didn't know if it was necessarily a direct result from some of the bigger battles we've seen or not. So, but
I would definitely call it a consequence of those battles. I mean, the situation as is that PL PL and NC or NC Dot and Melissa Kunda all got to the point that they just lost too much ISK. Even if they're not broke. I assume, as far as I know, all SRP is still going on for those corps and or alliances rather. But it's just a matter of they can't be committing supers and titans and dreads and stuff like they did in a full scale war that they have been doing.
I also have to imagine that pilots from those respective blocks and even on the CFC side, but I imagine they're tired. I mean, just look at the Fountain War of 2013 and look at, like, we fought in Fountain and we lost it, and Test didn't even put up a fight for Delve because the line members were so exhausted with the Sov War. I imagine, I would have to think that with such a morale blow after the Battle of Bitakar, everyone's probably just a little sick of fighting.
I could see that. Um, Next up on the list is the test State of the Union, and I know you guys follow this a little closer than I did because, well, I really was not in test all that long. Maybe you can speak to this a little bit.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. This Test had their State of Alliance days, if not hours, following the announcement that Insidious Empire was closing up. And if you recall, they were at one point they were deployed to Veil of Silence with EMP, and they were just prior to EMP's closing doors. I believe they announced they were going to go somewhere, and then right as soon as that, of course, EMP or fell apart. Test announced that they are now moving to Soct in. Is that actually Delve or is that?
That is that is in Aridia. It
Okay.
is one jump. Oh, that's where all the NC Dot and I think CFC and Black Legion and everyone's staged. It's right outside of one smab. So
Yep.
you basically, yeah, you enter Delve from Soct. It's basically the bottleneck system for entry into the rest of Delve.
Yep. And so their goal following following their exploits into Veil of Silence and everywhere else. They note they are still continuing to be in faction warfare. As newer players, they're gonna continue to accept players in their faction warfare because that's kind of an easier step from high sec to faction warfare to then moving on to null sec. Basically, what they're going to be doing in Delve, though, is they're going to be having a mafia-like insurance program where they are going to harass the crap out of all of the goon renters, or excuse me, the CFC renters. I don't know if the proper term is goon, but CFC renters, goon renters, whatever you call it, of the Greater Western Prosperity Co. I want to say is the name, which is that's the rental alliance or corp, whatever it's called. And they are going to try to extort them out of ISK in exchange for protection. Basically, they won't attack them. In the meantime, they're gonna do whatever they can, including up to hot dropping, running cloakies in the systems, stealth bombers cloaked up, and everything in
Good
between.
old-fashioned extortion.
Yep. So I actually heard they already had a customer that bought into their services. It was I don't remember the name that Pizza's calling it. The pizza constellation that's out there. I'm going to call it the Pizza Palace just because that sounds funny. But
the Pizza Pocket.
Pizza Pocket. That's it.
Yep.
Which is I believe it's the SeaTac Y or SeaTac 6, whatever that one was right in the middle of Delve.
It's that constellation that I used to rat in all the time.
Yep.
It's a pretty nice system.
So that was one of the test first customers, and they plan on, their goal here is to have fun, dip their toes back into nullsec, and have fun while doing it, while not getting too much attention that the goons try to deploy to stop them and so forth. They want to be annoying enough to hurt the renters without being annoying enough to cause the goons to come down and kind of push them away, which they could probably pull off. It sounds like so far. I think we'll see in a later kill mill in the kill of the week. We're going to hear about one particular ship that already got taken out, so that should be interesting. Besides that, since we are talking about alliance updates, I wanted to bring up the fact that we have Brave. Brave celebrated their 1-year anniversary last weekend. Us being in Brave, we took part in that. They had a number of cool things going on, including all kinds of like hot drop stuff and thunder brawls, and it was just sounded like a really great time. Obviously, if you've been listening to the show for a while, you'll know that we weren't there at the beginning, but Brave Alliance, the Brave Newbies Corp started from Reddit out of a group that all joined E following the Battle of Asakai a year ago, a year from when the Battle of Bitakar happened this year. So it's the same right about now as when they started, and so they got together and like, all right, let's figure out how this game works. And shout out to them. They're now, I believe, the second largest alliance in the game. And at one point I saw, according to Zkillboard, that they were the #1 PvP alliance in the game. I should say PvP with an asterisk, saying, the #1 most kills. I mean, there's obviously different ways to measure that sort of thing.
They are the #1 dirty blobbers in all of EVE Online. No?
Yeah.
Nothing? I'll admit it.
know.
I'm a dirty blobber. Or do you think CFC is the #1 dirty blobber in all of EVE Online?
I think
don't know.
CFC has pretty good contention for that.
Pretty good blobbing technique?
Yep. Moving on from Alliance updates, I did want to give a quick kind of follow-up on Rubicon 1.1. Came out just prior to the battle, or excuse me, just after the Battle of BTACR, where we had our special. By the time we had our special, it was already in place. Included a number of things. Go listen to the previous podcast. We kind of talked about them in brief. But new deploys and all deployables, new battleship and so forth. A couple of things that came out of that, though, I just wanted to mention. There were a couple of notable bugs. I do want to say there's one kind of big rumor and scuttlebutt one that people were talking about, which has been I haven't heard anything of after the fact, but it was only a short period, about a day afterwards, that there was a reporting that possibly